All right. Well, like I said, Quentin, it's very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you as well.
I really loved Tiny Beautiful Things. I thought your performance in the show was really great. So
Oh, thank
congratulations,
you.
first and foremost.
Thank you so much. Truly, I appreciate that.
So, how familiar were you with Cheryl Strayed's Tiny Beautiful Things before you joined the show?
You know, I actually, I wasn't aware of it that much. I had heard about the Dear Sugar, just articles just through, I don't even know honestly what through, but I was aware of that. But I didn't know about the book. I wasn't really that aware of Cheryl Strayed. I had seen Wild before. Um, but yeah, that was really the end of my knowledge going into it.
So when you first joined the show, I'm wondering what were your first conversations like with showrunner Liz Tigelaar?
Yeah, I think it was probably during the audition process, and really just I think the first thing was kind of just notes on the character, notes on things to bring with it. I really wanted a true freedom. When I was first got my hands on it, it really felt like such a true um, grounded script where you really had to be there with the other person. Most of the times for me, Kathryn. Um, and yeah, so that was kind of our first conversations, just about how to bring that to life, how to bring their relationship to life, and how to be free, and the tone, and all things like that. And then once we got further into it, more specifics about my character, specifics about the background, and stuff like that. And Liz, one thing she's really great about is giving you a true freedom and true ownership on your character. And there was just a ton of collaboration. I was really so thankful for how just open she was with hearing out how I felt about the character and how I felt about how things were going. It was really, just it was really great, honestly.
So in this show, your arc focuses a lot on your relationship with Claire and with Ray. I'm wondering first
Yeah.
and foremost if you can talk about your collaboration with Kathryn Hahn on the show and trying to sort of paint this very sort of complicated relationship you two have together.
Yeah, yeah. Catherine was really just she was really great. She was so giving of her time throughout the entire process, but especially in the beginning, when we came together and knew we had to bring this marriage and backstory to life very quickly. So we got together, we met, we had conversation, talked about our backstory, and we did this thing. The I think it's like a 36 questions to fall in love on a hike, and really just in that we're able to find some connected shared memories. And I remember, that like week and a half before we started shooting, from when I knew I was going to get it till we started, we would share with each other just via text music that we were listening to that might have sparked a thought that we had about the show, or a memory that we had about the show. And I would like send her a song and the memory that it sparked for me, and then she would add something that that sparked to her, and then I would add something that sparked back, and we kind of like through this text chain would build a memory that we could both go back to. And then just in the actual moments of filming, she was just so giving and so free and so there with you in the moment, that you felt really safe to try something new, or do something different, just because she was gonna be there to pick it up.
Right, and there's a lot of difficult moments in the show, and especially in the relationship. But there are also a few moments of levity, such as in episode 6 when they go to Home Depot.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, how do you sort of balance out these very sort of funny and happy moments that are still there and still sort of signal their love for one another versus the more difficult and challenging scenes between them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, that's really a testament to both Liz and Cheryl, that the writing was just that much to work with, because that really is how life is, it's not just one thing. Even in your worst moments, there's times of levity, there's often laughter at funerals, you know what I mean? And so I think that was something that we were very aware of. Not only that, but just knowing the tone of the show, having a comedic undertone to all these traumatic things that were happening. And it was really something that we were aware of, something that we wanted to make sure was always there throughout the process of the show and the moments that it was really there, play into it because there were going to be a lot of hard moments in the show, tear jerker moments as well. But yeah, I think that was really part of how grounded and messy and beautiful the script and the execution of it really was. Just moments where it's like, I've kicked my wife out and I'm now driving her back to where she's staying and she's wolfing down Chick-fil-A and talking about how terrible Chick-fil-A is, but also how good, the chicken. It's just like all this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, this is also the person that I fell in love, but also kicked her out of the house. So there was just so many dynamic things going on that it really just is kind of an actor's dream to really play all of that at once because it just fills you up and gives you so much.
Now, in terms of shooting the therapy scenes, we see that there's a lot of tension between the two. I'm wondering, how did you sort of both approach, shooting these scenes and sort of, I would say, like evolving the tension, throughout the show?
Yeah, I think we both came into it with our own personal uh backstory or where we were coming from at the moment. And then we just kind of let it go when we got into the room. There were a lot of things that came up that I wasn't even necessarily prepared uh for them to come up just like naturally in the moment things either where I felt embarrassed or vulnerable or not wanting to share or uncomfortable, things that just naturally came up that I think would come up in a couples therapy setting. And so, yeah, we would obviously have rehearsal and stuff like that and find things, but I think it just really goes back to the testament that is when you are an actor working with other actors that are really there and present for you in the moment, you can kind of just go where your instincts tell you to go and go where you're just feeling and emotions tell you to go and trust that that person's going to go on that ride with you and it's going to do something to them and they are therefore going to have a reaction and then you're there with them and that reaction is going to cause you to have a reaction. Then it's just that tennis back and forth. And those scenes really had a lot of that in a very special way, I felt like.
And can you talk about your collaboration with Tanzyn Crawford on the show? Like, how did you want to paint Danny's relationship with Ray?
Yeah, that I think it kind of just organically happened. Tanzan's just incredible. She really was probably definitely one of my favorite people on set, in general. And we were doing interviews together and she was like, yeah, I was just gonna bother him until he liked me. I was like, I didn't know that's what you were doing, but it worked. Um, and yeah, and she's such a like she's just fun and she has so much heart. And I think we got to this actual natural relationship where it felt kind of like I was a probably lame big brother to her, and she would teach me about things like TikTok and stuff like that. And she would come to me with some real concerns she had about, this being really her first big opportunity and big show like that, and things that she was going through, and I kind of just give any advice that I had. And on screen, initially I wanted Danny to be a loving father. I wanted him to be really all about his daughter, but it became very easy because I naturally just truly care that much about Tanzan, and our natural relationship just kind of found its way on screen in a sense, and it was really great. I really do love Tanzan. Yeah, she's just great.
So did yourself, Kathryn, and Tanzyn all have this sort of specific approach in portraying that family relationship?
Well, I think we all knew our dynamics. I think the two of them have a bit more of a confrontational dynamic between the two. And so when I knew, or at least speaking for myself, knowing that that was going to be more of their energy, I've got to find a place in that, and what would be your place in that if, two people in your house are kind of just butting heads consistently, how are you going to get through that? Are you going to be the mediator? Are you going to be the escalator? Which I was like, not, absolutely not. So, I kind of found myself in the mediation point and also, a frustrated point of like, gosh, this stuff again and back and forth always, and can we just get a bit of peace? And so yeah, so when we had some of those scenes that were all three of us and really explosive for whatever reason or whoever was causing or going back and forth, it really was a place where you would kind of just find your place in the rhythm of the scene. And again, just three people very aware of what was going on. There were times where I felt I needed to have my voice heard and volume and put my presence on it, and people reacted when that happened. And there were other times where that wasn't the case for me. I kind of sit back and reacted to what I was getting from everyone else. And again, I think when you're working with talented actors that are really there with you, all that you need is in the other actors' actions and what they're giving you.
And when you read the script for the show, was it hard to sort of peel all the layers in Claire and Danny's relationship with Ray?
Um, I think I think it wasn't necessarily hard to find the layers. I think it was more so trying to being in that natural uh parent position where you might find yourself with a daughter that is truly finding herself and and changing her name and going through periods of understanding her sexuality in a place that I don't think Danny had as much familiarity with, but wanted to be there for his daughter. So it was just kind of this natural place of trying to relate, but not necessarily knowing how, or not necessarily knowing the right things to say, but knowing you want to be there for your daughter. And also trying to help your wife see that, your daughter is not one, your personal mother, and also not you and her own person. And we need to give her that space to grow there, but also, hey, she's coming home drunk on a surfboard. This is not okay. Like, and so yeah, it was kind of finding all of those things and finding all those dynamics, and just for me personally, trying to live through them as one would, who like I can't go in and change another person's mind. I can only deal with what they are, giving me, and try to love that person for who they are, and just be there for them and relate and understand that they're going through a tough time, which is puberty, which all of us have a tough time going through that.
Were there any scenes that you found particularly difficult to film for the show?
Some of the therapy scenes were definitely difficult. I'm not a person who's gone through that. And I'm also not a person who's like, I usually, if I'm opening up, I know the person very well. It's a very close friend or a parent or sibling. Um, so having that kind of vulnerability and going through some of those things, and in the sexual conversations, and also in a sense feeling a bit disrespected by the way I was being um, treated and viewed, by my wife, and having to be vulnerable and open up to someone else about, you know, uh, feeling that disrespect and stuff. So I think some of those were difficult. Um, and then also some of I loved episode 6. I really did love episode 6, but I think some of the conversations that me and Kathryn had in that, of really opening up and being like, I'm not where I wanted to be, and I don't feel like who I wanted to be at this age. Those are tough things to talk about with someone else. Yeah.
Right. And so at the end of the show, Danny does not know that Claire has been writing the Dear Sugar letters. The funny thing about it is that the therapist recommends him recommends him those letters without knowing that it's also Claire that wrote them. I'm wondering if the story, in your opinion, would have evolved differently had he known what Claire was doing.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure it would have evolved differently, but I'm not sure it would have ended in a different place. Um, because I think one of the things that was happening, well, two things. One, I felt like Danny really got to a point where he realized he was not content with himself. He was not in a place where he felt like himself, where he was happy with who he is. So he had to go back, kind of refine himself and really, get back to who he is, who before he could be with anybody. And then two, in their connection, I think a big part wasn't necessarily just that Claire took the money and gave it to the brother in those issues. I think it was more that like there was no discussion between the two. So I really do think that had he found out that she was the one writing, this Dear Sugar articles in the Vice column, and found out that she was doing this for a while and had not been open and let him in on it, I think it would have just been another thing where it's like we just aren't seeing eye to eye. We're not being open. We're not communicating with each other. What are we doing here? So yeah, I think it would have been different, but I think they might have ended up at the same place.
And how do you think Danny reading these letters help him evolve from where he was at the show's beginning to where we leave him in the finale?
Yeah, I think it just gave him an outside voice to what he already knew. I think sometimes you need to be reminded or have someone else say what you're already thinking, put it in words to almost confirm how you feel. I feel like almost from the onset, Danny is in need of space from Claire, and space from the routine of what they've gotten into, or the routine that they have gotten into. And so I think those words just really kind of help clarify what he already really knew to be the case, or knew to be the truth.
And finally, I'm wondering, what do you hope audiences ultimately grasp out of watching Tiny Beautiful Things?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the book. When you do read Tiny Beautiful Things, even each individual advice uh, article column, um, each individual person is going to get something else out of it. There's so much in there, and Cheryl really gives so much of herself, and she's so vulnerable in her responses that each person is going to draw what they need from that. So I don't think there's one size fits all of what I would hope people would get from the show. I really just think, I hope that people get something that they needed from the show, and from one person to the next it's going to be different things. At least that's kind of how I felt about the book, and that's how I feel about the show as well, that you're going to come away from it with something, but each person's going to come away from it with something else. So
Awesome. Well, it was really great talking to you today, Quentin, on the show. Congratulations once again. Your performance is absolutely incredible.
thank you so much, Max. I truly appreciate that.
Absolutely. I wish you all the best on your future projects, and I hope that you have a really good rest of your day.
Absolutely. You have a great rest of your day too.
Thank you.